This is my very first car, and I have had this car for 15 years this year. That's right, this is the anniversary of me owning this car. Let me talk you around it, show you some of the things that I've done to it, and tell you about how much this car means to me and why I've kept it for so long. I have had this car since 2010. I got it at the age of 16 years old. My mum bought this car for me for 110 quid from where I worked. It came in with a head gasket fault, and they were going to scrap it. They'd done the gearbox on it about 2 weeks earlier and absolutely had enough of spending any money on it. So they said, I'm going to scrap it, and the scrap money at the time was 110 quid. I bought it as a completely standard 2002 Fiat Punto 1.2 Mia. When I got it, it had black plastic bumpers on it. It looked completely different to how it looks now. I've done so much to this car over the entire time that I've owned it. I just love it. I'm so attached to it. I'm so sentimental to this car. I will never sell it, ever, ever, ever. And I know I always say that, but I mean it.
Why is the window down?
I'll get onto that in a minute. Starting off at the front, you'll notice the front bumper. Keen-eyed Fiat enthusiasts will know that that is an Abarth bumper. That is super, super rare. In fact, this car has got the entire Abarth body kit on it. It's got these halo headlights on it, which are a little bit out of fashion now. I might change those and put the original ones back on it. I also painted the badge. That's supposed to be blue and silver. I color-coded it grey and red because that was the theme that I went with this car. I had the mirrors color coded. It's got the wheels from a Fiat Coupe 20 valve turbo, which I really, really like. And it's got the 4-pot Brembo brakes with 330mm discs, I believe. Abarth side skirts as well. Again, genuine. Some of the paint is coming off a bit where it's been chipped and marked a bit over time. Color coded door handles. I also did those because obviously, you know, back in the day, you got to color code everything. You will notice, as Rory aforementioned earlier, that the window is slightly down. What happened earlier, Rory?
You locked yourself out of your car while it was running?
While it was running, yeah. I brought this over on the trailer today. Started it up on the button, can I add? Shut the door. Oh my God, it locks itself. There's a problem with this little knob here. It's got no resistance. So every time you go to open the door, unless you're holding it up, it locks itself. I'm gonna be completely honest. It's not the first time that's happened. It's happened quite a few times. I just forgot about it. But obviously I wouldn't tell Rory that because
obviously
he would mock me. Moving further around the back, you'll notice brake calipers. This car didn't come with brake calipers from factory because it's only a 1.2. It came with drums. Also, Ace Caf London. I used to go down there a lot. I used to buzz down there, have a couple of chili con carnes. It was lovely back in the day. HGT Abarth rear spoiler. Again, very rare. A lot of the paint has peeled off this. And Abarth rear bumper. I always wanted the exhaust to come out of the little holes in the rear bumper. From factory, it's supposed to come out of here. So I custom made this exhaust myself in my garage with a vise and a mallet. What it is a cherry bomb slid onto the original pipe, but I've bent it and then fitted it with the bumper. So to take that exhaust off, you have to take the bumper off. I should probably mention this here. I haven't driven this car for quite a long time. The last time I did drive it was from when I was moving units years ago. I didn't have the bonnet latch properly and I drove up the road and it flew up and smashed the windscreen, which is why that's slightly crooked. So I do need to straighten that out. Under here, we will find, look at this absolute work of art, a mighty 1.2 litre 8 valve with 60 horsepower. Now don't judge, it's not a lot of power. I daily drove this car for 6 years with this amount of power. And do you know what? I loved every moment of it. They're actually really, really good engines, very reliable. I've done 70,000 miles in this car since I've owned it, and touch wood, it's never gone wrong. It's never broken down and never left me stranded anywhere. The only thing I ever had to do was put a clutch in it. I'd say that's pretty good going.
From one Italian hatchback to an Italian super saloon, and a reminder from me that if you guys want to buy yourself a used car, van or motorbike, always run a car vertical report to ensure it's not being crashed, stolen or clocked. If we take my beloved Alpha 156 GTA as an example, you can see green ticks for odometer, finance and damage that tells me and you that this car does not have a shady past. And now for an example of a car vertical report that would make me reconsider buying this Audi RS3. Green ticks for odometer and finance, but an amber warning for damage. And if we scroll down, also 11 owners found. Bloody hell, if we scroll down to the damage pictures, rear end looks to be okay, side looks to have had an impact. And then if we get to the front end damage, but if we close that one down, that was in May 2020, and we scroll down to February of 2021, you can see that this car was put up for sale looking like a brand new motor vehicle. But if you scroll down, you can see that this car was indeed a Category S write-off. So because of Car Vertical, you know that the history of this is not so good. So again, and yes, I know I say it every single week, do not get stung when buying a used car, van or motorbike. Always run a car vertical report. What's more, to sweeten the deal, you will get 20% off using the code V2. Right then, Taylor, back to it.
Should we go inside? There we go. So in here, it is a bit of a mess. I haven't cleaned it for a long time, but it is very, very cool. These seats are out of an Alpha 147 GTA. It's got an Abarth steering wheel on it with a little air horn and a rich brick gear knob. You'll remember that if you were ever a fan of Halford stuff. I had the center console and the stereo surround and the vents and stuff all color coded to the wheels. When I got it, it only had a speedo and a fuel gauge. So I've put the dials in out of a 1.4 Sporting, I believe, which has a rev counter, a temperature gauge, and all the others as well. And it's got a little trip computer in it, and it all works, and it plugs and played. And I've got my little McDonald's thing.
Speaking of McDonald's.
No! Is that a chip? I genuinely didn't know that was in there. That's, oh my God, it's like ash. That is at least 6 years old, that chip. Also, as a little memento to myself, I left everything in here from when I used to drive this car.
Well, we can tell that, there's still some chips in it.
There's still chips in it, yeah. This was a company that my mate Tom used to do, clean. It did like detailing stuff. On here it says YOLO, you only live once, remember that? A medal, winner. Don't know what for. Only the OGs will know. I used to take this car down a lot to Hayling Island with my mate Rob, and in here I still have some of the little coins from the Hayling Island amusements. Because I haven't driven this in so long, we're going to buzz it in the unit, give it a little check over, do a couple of bits to it, and then hopefully I'm going to go and get an MOT on it. And I'm very, very excited for that. Should we stick it in the unit, Rory?
Go on then.
All right. On the button. So it is now a couple of days later, and as you can see, my little Fiat is inside in the workshop, and we're going to get cracking with some bits on it. I have managed to gather a few parts in the days that we've been away. Some front shock absorbers, I'll get onto that in a minute. Front springs, I have bought a very expensive £20 head unit because the one in there is missing. I managed to find the original steering wheel in my loft, and the main reason I want to put that on is because the steering wheel that's on it is A, too small and doesn't have an airbag in it, so it won't pass an MOT. Oil filter, because I'm going to do an oil and filter change. And in my very damp and dusty shed, I managed to find the original headlights. I do quite like those, but I want to put the original ones back in. They're a little bit 18-year-old me. And also, if you look at them, there's a little bubble here, and that is mainly because I put 100-watt bulbs in it and I left them on and it melted the lenses, and it's always really annoyed me. So we're going to chuck those in as well. Also, I forgot to mention, I've got a nice new K&M filter for it as well, because my original one, well, it sort of fell off. Oh, that's the wrong diameter. That should, oh, look at that. There we go, nice and on there. Now that's done, let's jack it up and get started with the suspension. If you look at this wheel, you will see that it's not dead straight upright, it cambers in. But if you look at the other side, you can see that it's a lot more upright. It doesn't have as much negative camber as the other side. And the reason for why, I will show you now. These coilovers aren't actually that old. I fitted them and then stopped driving this car, mainly because I really didn't like the way it drove after I fitted them. I showed you before the negative camber on this front wheel, and that is because this top bolt that secures the coilover to the hub is elongated, so you can adjust the camber, which is cool if you want to adjust your camber, but for some reason, and I tried this multiple times, it doesn't matter how tight I did that bolt, if I hit a big enough pothole, it would always slide in and cause negative camber, which would then put my wheel alignment out and make it drive all over the place. We're going to take these off, put some original shocks with lowering springs back on it, and hopefully it will drive a million times better. Can we just admire as well how easy this car is to work on? This was the first time I ever done a clutch, and the first time I'd ever done a head gasket was on this car, and it was an absolute joy. It's so nice to work on. Oh, my bad, my memory has failed me here. It's the bottom bolt that's elongated and not the top one. Where the bolt is elongated, it has a certain amount of camber adjustment. The only problem is, because it has a track rod end attached here, when you push the top in and bring the negative camber in, it also toes in. So your wheel doesn't just go like that, it goes like that and points in towards the front of the car. When that happens, it drives rubbish. It drives horribly. There's two of those that hold my entire front suspension strut on. You can't really tighten them enough without snapping them to stop this from adjusting itself. It's a bit frustrating. So we're going to get rid of it and just put some normal shocks back on. Strut comes out. And then out like that, easy as pie. And as you can see, the top hole is round and the bottom hole is elongated for that up, like in and out adjustment. Our new shock absorber, both of the holes are round. So the adjustment of that is fixed and that is adjustable, which in this case we don't really want because this is a bit rubbish. I don't know why I put these on. So before we fit the new shock absorbers, we need to build it up first. I've got these, which are new bump stops and protectors for the shock absorber seals. That sits on there, maybe? Oh, that feels good. And then the spring goes on there, and then the top mount. So this is for the, I'm gonna do it for this side, and that little arrow there, I think needs to point forwards. So this needs to go like that. So the only trouble is because I've taken coilovers off and I'm rebuilding this from scratch, I don't fully know how it goes, but it looks about right. And then this large nut I've had to take off of the old top mounts because it's special for here. Goes on like that. You'll notice we didn't have to compress that because this is a lower end spring and it doesn't put this under any tension. So it's a lot easier to fit than it would have done if it was a normal spring. Simply in here. Like in, and then that. Easy as pie. Now I've just got to put the two bolts in here and we're done. Oh my God. I've just noticed, I noticed something touching the drive shaft and I was like, what was that? I was looking for this the other day because I fitted a new battery. It's my battery clamp. It's obviously fallen down and it's just sitting down there. That's a result. This just gets better. Before we put the wheels on and lower it down, we're going to fit the headlights next, mainly because the wheels need to stay off so I can get to the wheel arch liners because the bumper needs to come off a bit to be able to access the bottom of the headlight because this bit here tucks just below the bumper. So we have to pull the bumper off a bit to be able to get this fully out. So let's crack on with that. Like that. Oh, look at those. Refit in reverse order. Oh, yes. Probably should plug it in. Let's have a look. Dipped. Hazards. Yeah. Nice. We're all good. Before we move on, I have a fun fact for you. What car were those headlights used in? And I'll give you a clue. No, it was not Italian. It was the MG SVR V8. And if you look at the headlights in that car, they are identical to these. Let's get this bumper back on, and then we're going to move on to the steering wheel. Just does that. Line this all back up now. This oil smells like it's got a lot of fuel in it where this car's been moved about for a while. Thank you. So we're going to put some nice 1040 in here, Febby of course, because this car is old and it doesn't take 540 or 530 or any of that water now. So all this is proper oil, this. And it only takes 2.8 litres, which is a minuscule amount. Oh, wow, that oil is thick. That's what proper engines run on. None of this modern shit. Okay, so now the oil's in, we're just gonna start it up, circulate the oil so we can check the level afterwards. On the button. Now it's time to lower it down and check the ride height. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it sits nicely. Oh, look at that. Perfect. Before I close the bonnet, I have fitted the battery clamp so that the battery is now secure, because that was also an MOT failure. Next up, steering wheel and radio. So the steering wheel should be quite nice and easy. There's a few screws by the looks of it on the back of this one, but this one, the horn simply pops out. Oh yes. And then buzz that on there. Oh yes. Make sure it's straight first, because if we take it off on the piss and then put the new one on straight, then it'll be wonky. And when you take the steering wheel off, you must make sure that this doesn't, this is called the clock spring. Got to make sure it doesn't turn, because there's loads of wires in there all reeled up. And if we don't put it on in the correct way, then as you turn the steering wheel, it will break, and then your airbag light will be on and we'll be in all sorts of trouble. It's not going anywhere. Oh, look at that. Oh, that still works even with the ignition off, as it turns out. Oh, that's better. It's the correct size. It's all there. Airbag light goes out. Win-win, ready for an MOT. Finally, we're going to fit the MP3 in-car entertainment Ferrari car package. And supposedly it's got a little screen, but I bought it because it was cheap. That should plug straight in. I've already got the adapter for this car from my previous head unit. First of all, the little cage goes in like that, and then we bend some of the tabs down just to keep it in place. And then before I slot this in, I'm just going to check that it works. Look at that! That's actually quite nice. Oh, so now that's working. Slot that in there like that. Easy. That's good to go now. All we've got to do now is take it for an MOT, and then hopefully we can hit the road. So, it's a few hours later, and I am proud to report that my little Fiat, she's passed her MOT, and I am absolutely over the moon. This is the first time I've driven this car in about 6 years, and I am ecstatic. I'm so happy. Everyone said to me, oh, you should get rid of it, you should sell it, you should scrap it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I am so glad I've ignored everyone and kept this car, because I absolutely love it. And I love that when I drive this car, it brings back all the memories of when I used to drive it, you know, 6+ years ago. I've had this car for 15 years this year, and I've done 70,000 miles in it, or just over 70,000 miles actually. And in that time, you do build up loads of memories. I used to take this car to Hayling Island. I took it to Ireland as well. I did a 1,000-mile road trip across Ireland and Southern Ireland. I used to take it to the seaside. I used to take it up north. I loved it. I took it absolutely everywhere. To be able to still drive this car, you know, 10, 15 years later, I absolutely love it to bits. And yes, it does still need a few little bits and bobs here and there doing to it, but it's nice that I can be able to take it out as and when. It's now road legal, and I can just do it as I go along. It's just fabulous. The bits that I've done to this car, I can already feel have drastically improved it. It doesn't have that awful ride anymore from those coilovers, and the steering wheel is so much better. That one before, it looked kind of cool, but it was just way too small. I've also now got a stereo, which is fabulous, and it just drives so much better. And don't get me wrong, it's by no means a speed machine. It does only have 60 horsepower. Yeah, but it still puts a smile on my face, and I still absolutely love this car to bits. It still makes the odd funny noise here and there, and it's still not perfect, but I just love this little car. All the memories come flowing back when I sit behind the wheel of this little car. I'm so glad that I've finally put the bits on this car and put it back on the road. My entire childhood was spent behind the wheel of this car. I drove this car on my provisional when I was 17. And then the day I passed my driving test, I could not wait to get behind the wheel of this car. It was on a beautiful day like today, the sun was shining, and I drove this car everywhere. I never used to get out of it. I used to spend my whole life behind the wheel of this car, and I met so many of my friends because of it. And for that, I absolutely love it, and I will never part ways with this car. And I know I've said that before, and I have, but this is different. I learnt my trade on this car. I met friends through this car. I went on adventures in this car, And that is what makes it. I hope you have all enjoyed watching this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and join us next time for some other wacky projects that we've got on the go, and hopefully get some more cool cars back on the road. I'll see you then.